if you don't want to be on the board, you can help out with any of those. But it's all volunteer, and you know how that goes. Sometimes it's hard, but it's great to have a graduation for our homeschoolers. So if that's something that's important to you and you want to keep that up, we are really, really in need. I can't stress that enough of people helping so that we can keep that going, or it might not be able to keep going. So please see me if you're interested in helping in home ed in any way, or you know somebody how you want to volunteer. That would be fun too. I'm not going to talk too much further because we have Jose here. But if you didn't get any papers, I will get you some. And thanks again for coming. I just want to say really quick, my oldest daughter who's not here tonight, Taylor, she works at David's Burgers. She started January last year, I think. And because she could start younger, she started working here and she loves it. It's been a really great opportunity for her to learn, grow, and just been great. So, and my next is up on the docket too.
Yes. Perfect.
Yes, so she's here. So thank you again for coming. I'm just going to hand it over to Jose.
Hey guys, how we doing tonight? Good. All right, so just a quick intro on who I am and how am I affiliated with David's Burgers. So currently I am the training coordinator for all of David's Burgers. So what that means is my job or my responsibility is to go around all the David's Burgers and make sure that we're training, that the management team is being supported, and that it's a lot of leadership development. So that's currently my job, and I've been with David's Burgers about 10 years. I started when I was 20 years old. So for you guys doing the math, y'all know how old I am. But I actually started at the West Little Rock location, this one here, about 10 years ago. I was a dishwasher, and I moved my way up to being a training coordinator. And so this is a great company to work for. I've been very blessed to have great mentors in my life that's kind of been just guiding me and instructing me on just being a good, decent human being. I think that's the ultimate goal for most parents, is to have their kids to become decent human beings. So we're going to go over that interview training worksheet. Does everybody have one of these worksheets? Okay. So it's very straightforward. There's not a lot of new information to do about as far as interview training. I think everybody kind of has their own little tips for interview training if you go and search online, but the very generic ones are the same, and we're going to go over them here in a little bit today. The main thing is just to be well prepared. You know, interview, when you get that call from somebody saying, hey, come for an interview, it's a little nerve-wracking, just because, you know, this will probably be your first job, you don't have a lot of experience interviewing, and so it's a little nerve-wracking, right? So the key to all of this is, and it's always been my thing, is that just being prepared helps a lot. I think knowing what you're in for gives you the confidence to know what to look forward to, and helps you throughout the interview process. The nerves don't necessarily go away, but you know exactly what you're getting yourself into. And so, one of the things that I like to do, is one of my tips whenever I tell people to get ready for an interview, is to jot down some questions that they might ask you, and then write down the answer to those questions. I'm sure you guys, a lot of you guys probably do some research as well as far as interviews, and there's some questions that you see it come up a lot. Like, tell me about yourself. And if you can write that question down and then write like a sentence or two or three that kind of gives you, that you, in your own words, tell people about yourself, you kind of already have that answer already, you know, beforehand. So whenever the person interviewing you, they look at you and sitting in the table, your nerves are shaking, you're sweating, and they say, tell me about yourself. You don't freeze up a little bit. You know, so just think about some questions that they might ask you, and that's just my general tip. But even before the interview, one of the key things that I like to go over is getting good rest and breakfast. And I went through several bullet points about that, but you want to be full of energy the next day. And in order to do that, some of you guys need to get some good sleep. And especially young people, I think we're very bad about that. That we think just because we're young, we can sleep 2 to 3 hours and be okay the next day. And going into the interview, energy is very important, especially from my standpoint as a person that's been interviewing people for a long time and hiring a lot of people is that energy is very important. So when you go into the interview process and you look tired, you're yawning, your eyes look like they're glossed over by just the whole process, and it's because you didn't get good enough rest, the interviewer is going to look at that and think, well, I don't think this person's really motivated about getting a job. And so you're already setting a bad first impression. And you haven't even said a word. Now we're going to go over a little bit more about what nonverbal communication is, but get some rest. Even if you don't think you need it, try to get as much rest as possible. Another thing that feeds into anxiety is being tired. You know, being tired, being stressed out because you're doing an interview isn't a good combo. Don't you think? And get a good breakfast. Eat something healthy, something that's going to give you energy, but isn't going to let you crash later on. Get some rest. Get a good breakfast. You'd hate to be in an interview and this person's talking to you about the interview process and your stomach is grumbling. I think that just kind of adds to the nerves. They might not even think less anything of it, but to you growling in an interview, you're probably already like, oh my word. No. I cannot stress this enough. To get rest, have some breakfast, prepare. You gotta prepare yourself. Anything that you can do to give yourself an edge, you gotta do it. Especially if you really want the job. I mean, most of us don't go to interviews just because we want to check it off the list. We go to interviews because we want that job, correct? So we want to make sure we do the best we can to get prepared for that. Another thing that I like to stress before an interview is to dress to impress. I cannot stress this enough how important it is to look presentable. I've personally turned away a lot of people because they don't look presentable. They come in and they say they want a job, but they come in basketball shorts and a t-shirt, or they come in with a shirt ragged or torn or dirty, and they're looking for a job. And as a business owner, somebody that cares about guests, because I mean, we have people out here all day long ordering food and just out here sitting. I don't want my guests thinking that that's the standard of how I want my staff to look. So I'm not gonna interview you. I'm not even gonna schedule an interview, even if you ask me to. Usually what I do is, most of the time, I tell them, I use it as a great opportunity to tell them, this is, because some of them don't know. They don't know that they really need to look presentable. So they come in and they look like that, and that's a great opportunity to tell them, all right, you seem like a good kid, or you seem like you really want this job. I need you to do these things if you really are serious about getting this job. And if you do these things, you can come back and we can do an interview. And I tell them beforehand, and most of the time, they don't come back. Unfortunately. But that's just because they weren't serious about the job. They just wanted a job. And those that do come back appreciate the lesson, and they learn and they build on that lesson. And that's kind of what Davis Burgers is all about, the motto of helping young kids or helping our staff build good habits. And one of those good habits is looking presentable, creating a good first impression. I mean, the saying goes, a bad first impression, it takes seconds to make, but it takes a lifetime to actually, change. And on the flip side of that too. So dress to impress. And if you are prepared and you know where you're actually applying to, you also know the level of dress to impress that you need to do. Most people, in a restaurant environment, I've seen it all. I've seen people come in with a full-fledged suit with a vest on and pinstripes and everything, and looking to the T's. And that's great. That shows a lot of initiative. But I've seen people that just wear a nice pair of khakis, a nice dress polo, or just a really nice polo, and some really nice shoes. And it's all about looking presentable. I can't tell you to not look overly dressed, because for me, there's nothing wrong with looking overly dressed up. You can always dress up. You can't never dress down. And so if you come in looking dressed down, you have to fix that. And it reminds me of one of the stores that we have at Davis Burgers. And I want to share this with you guys a little bit, because everything that we do, we teach through stories. Because most young people, if I can sit here and tell you a lesson and give you a bunch of statistics on why things matter, you're not going to listen. You're going to write me off, right? Because we don't listen to that. I was young once, a long time ago. But we don't listen to that. So we like stories. We like to teach people through stories. I mean, even our owner tells us all the time, even Jesus taught through parables. And so one of the stories that we have is the first date story. And it talks about a young lady that has a 1-year anniversary with her boyfriend. We call this guy named Aaron, so if anybody here named Aaron, I'm sorry. And she's gonna, she gets ready for this 1-year anniversary. She has all these expectations. She rented out a limo. She's gonna recreate every one of their first dates. So the first time they went to the park, the first restaurant they went to, everything first. And she has all this stuff planned out. She rents the limo. She buys a nice dress, and she goes up and picks up her boyfriend Aaron. I don't understand why she's doing the picking up, but this is just how the story goes. And she picks up Aaron, right? And Aaron opens the door, and he's in sweats and a t-shirt. And he's wondering what's going on, and she's like, it's our anniversary. And then he says, oh, sorry about that. Let me go throw on some jeans, and we'll get rolling. In that moment, how do you think the young lady felt? And she probably felt disrespected, right? She probably felt like he didn't care. She probably felt that it didn't matter to him. And that's kind of, when we have guests and they come in and they come in with this certain level of expectation of Dave's Burgers. They're going to come in, we're going to greet them. They're going to come to the register. We're going to take their order. Somebody's going to be smiling at them the whole time. They're going to sit down. They're going to get lobby fries. They're going to get a refill. They're going to get ice cream samples. They're going to get all these things, right? That's the young lady in the story. She has all this expectation. They're going to, and by us not meeting that, we're actually disrespecting the guest. And that's what we tell our young people. It's that by not being prepared, you're showing your priorities. You're showing what you really actually value. And if you're not prepared, if you don't dress to impress, if you don't have a good first impression, you don't value that. And so people are going to take that and run with that. And they're going to view that as you don't care. Especially in an interview. If you don't come in looking nice and looking prepared, they're going to think you don't care about the interview. And it's not necessarily, it's not you saying it out loud, it's just your nonverbal communication is saying it. And you can have great intentions. You can really want the job. But like my uncle said one time, he says, and he was very dramatic, and excuse my language if I say this, but he said the road to hell is paved with good intentions. He said it doesn't matter whether you have good intentions or not, it matters what you actually do, or the direction you're actually going into. And that's what I tell young people all the time. You can have the greatest intentions in the world, but if you don't prepare, if you don't do what you're supposed to do, it doesn't really matter. So, be prepared. Dress to impress. And on that packet, there's a sheet that says dress for success. And on that sheet, if you guys look at it, it has some examples of what a business professional is, business casual, and just general recommendations as far as how to dress to impress or dress for success. And again, I'm not telling you guys to go rent a tuxedo to come for a job interview, but I am telling you guys to take the time and prepare yourself. Take the time to show the person that you're interviewing respect and honor by looking presentable, because it does matter. The level of you being prepared shows how much you care about the job and the opportunity, right? It says showing respect with a good appearance and a smile. We can unintentionally insult the interviewer without even speaking to them. A good first impression takes seconds to make, but lasts a lifetime. On the same note, a bad first impression takes seconds to make, but can last a lifetime to overcome. Another thing, we're going to go to the next thing about before the interview. It says do some research on where you are interviewing at. Another thing that you can do to get prepared is do some research wherever you're interviewing at. And it's simple. I mean, we live in the age of technology where you can Google anything and know a bunch of stuff about a bunch of people that you've never even met before without even asking anyone. I guarantee you, if you Google David's Burgers, you'll see our webpage, and the first thing that's going to pop in our webpage is going to be our mission statement. That's one of the first things. And so if you're going to interview in a spot, I would highly recommend you guys to research it just a little bit to know if you're actually going to be a good fit for that position. To know if you're actually going to like working there. Because what if you knock it out the ballpark in the interview process and you get hired on and then you're like, wow, I don't really think I like it here. You know? You could have saved yourself the whole process without even starting a job. So research, review the required skills and expectations carefully. Oftentimes, whenever you guys are applying for a specific position or a specific job, there's going to be a required, requirements. There's going to be, expectations, required skills. There's going to be a whole list of things in their job profile that when you're applying for, you got to look at as well to see if you can actually meet those requirements or meet those expectations before you even apply. So take a look at those. Those are very invaluable. Because if I don't, let's say for example, I'm not a people person, and the job required skills means to be able to speak to people on a daily basis, and so that's probably a job that I wouldn't want to apply for. And that saves me a whole interview process if I get to research that beforehand. So research a little bit about the company before you before you decide to interview. It says, and the interviewer will also kind of expect you to know a little bit about the company. If you're interviewing, one of the questions that some of my managers and people that I've trained in management ask is, why do you want to work for us? And in order to know why you want to work for us, you got to know who us is. You got to know who we are. You got to know a little bit about us. Well, why do you think you'd be a good fit for this company? That's another question that we ask all the time, our interviewees. And if you don't know whether you're a good fit for this company or not. So just take the time to research the company. He says, one of my favorite questions that I ask, I said, how can you contribute to the culture of David's Burgers? In order to answer the question, you need to know the culture of David's Burgers. Does anybody know the culture of David's Burgers? Anybody? That's just a question for me.
Yeah, friendly.
So, friendly, right? So whenever I ask you guys, if I say David's Burgers, what do you guys think of automatically next?
Noise.
Noise, right? Welcome, welcome, welcome. The energy, right? What else you guys think about?
Free French fries.
Free French fries, that's good. That means we have great customers. We give out great product. What else do you guys know about David's Burgers? You said what?
We have chicken sandwiches.
They have chicken sandwiches.
Oh, they have chicken sandwiches. They have good food. So, and that's another thing. Like, if you haven't researched the company, if you haven't really looked into David's Burgers, how do you know if you're a good fit or not? How do you know that you're going to be able to come in and just, be around this environment, excel in this environment? And I'm mostly speaking as well to parents. Most of your young kids in homeschool are 14, 15, 16 years old. And so you know them better than anybody else knows them. And so knowing the company that they're applying for, you also can know if they're a good fit or not. And you can also encourage them. There's been plenty of examples where parents say, you know what, I want my kid to know a lot of social skills because I know that you guys push them to say welcome to David. You guys push them to have conversations with people that normally they wouldn't. They push them out of their comfort zone. And so that's a great opportunity to say, all right, let's interview for this job and let's get it and let's, be proactive and build those social skills. So it is also, knowing the company also helps you guide your children to what you want them, to get, grow in. There's been plenty of times, young ladies, hey, this is Mr. Allen, guys.
You need a microphone.
I don't know.
You don't need a microphone.
I know.
What a deal.
There's been plenty of times where young people need those social skills and develop those social skills by the environment that we put them in. And so as parents, it helps them. It helps you guys, for us to be the coaches sometimes. I know Alan tells me all the time, he says he wants to be the good guy for once and let somebody else be the coach. And so it helps to be in an environment where you're getting coached, where you're getting held accountable to learning these skills. But you got to understand what you're getting yourself into, so you got to do your research. And just, be proactive.
Well, I just wanted to stop in and tell you parents how much we appreciate y'all. Your kids are amazing. Y'all are amazing kids. And I don't know, it's funny to me because we see all the kids that come in. And just the one, we hire, I don't know if y'all know this, we hire the best of the best. And how do I articulate the difference in the kids? Anyway, y'all are doing an amazing job training your kids. They're respectful to authority, and they're really trying to grow in life. So I want to thank the parents, and I want to thank the young people as well. And we really appreciate you here. And the reason Jose's in this job is because he really does genuinely love children and young people and young adults. And for me, after I go home to my 6 kids, I'm ready to give them a whooping. Jose really does love kids, and he really believes in what we're doing. And he's here to make sure that y'all are happy with the process, because we need your help. And hopefully it's a good partnership where the kids benefit and we can benefit also. And hopefully we can look back. And I emailed Summer Goldman today and a few other people. But anyway, just people that have gone on from David's, and she's a successful attorney working for J.B. Hunt and as their legal representative there for the real estate department. But just fun to catch back up with these kids as they get older and do good and go off and be rock stars in this world. So we like our involvement in it. But I just wanted to thank y'all so much and come on by.
Alan is the owner, by the way.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you so much.
In case no one knew that, he's the owner.
When I had hair, people would just recognize me for the picture. But now they think I'm my father, and I get my feelings hurt. Are you that one or that one? That hurts. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you.
Y'all have any questions for me? Is there anything I can do better at to serve y'all as parents? If you've got daughters, I'll tell you what I told a dad the other day. I said, if you've got a good looking daughter, we will beat up anyone that looks at her. And if you've got a handsome son, don't be going looking at the girls, because you're going to get your wrist slapped. So we're going to do some things that are a little different from the real world. Is that fair? I don't know if that's the way to put it. We're going to watch over your kids like they're our own. And some of them like that, and some of them don't.
Yeah.
But we just feel like that's a responsibility of ours, a responsibility of ours. So whether it's a concern you have day or night, Jose really does genuinely care, and call him and he will get it done. So anyway, thank y'all so much. I got to run, but I really appreciate y'all.
Thanks, Alan.
You need me for anything?
We're good.
Life is good?
Yeah.
Awesome. Good deal.
All right, guys. So let's get back at it. The next bullet point says, be familiar with the corporate page. I think we went over that. It says, your knowledge of the company will come in handy during an interview. Write down several reasons you would like to work for that company. That's kind of adding into that question that I asked earlier, why you want to work for the Dave's Burgers. If you write down a few reasons, you already have the answer to that question. So you can answer it right on the spot. You're not nervous about it. You're not stumbling. We ask several people in interviews, and we ask them these questions, and sometimes they get, they stumble and they say, and then it's a little weird, awkward silence, and the interviewer just, keeps waiting. They don't kind of bail you out most of the time. It's just you and the interviewer, and that awkward silence just keeps seeming like a long time, and it just keeps adding to your nerves, and it keeps building up that anxiety. But if you can just write down a few simple reasons why you want to work for this company beforehand, you can have that question answered right off the bat. It's going to add to your confidence. The more you know, the more you're adding to your confidence. Even in training, what we do is we talk to people a lot about the more you know, the more confident you can do your job. Equipping somebody with the knowledge to do their job, it's already half the battle. And I stress a lot whenever I am training that you've got to know all the material, know all the expectations beforehand. It helps. It really helps. You come into work, not knowing if you're doing a good job or not, isn't somewhere where I want my staff to be. I always encourage my managers and whoever's training to lay out the expectations beforehand, so that way they know they're doing a good job or not. Just because they can internally check off a list of all the stuff that I was told to do these 4 things and I got them done, so I did great today. It adds to that confidence. The last thing before the interview is practice and prepare. I think if you guys don't get a word out of this whole thing, is the word prepare. I think that's going to be the key word out of this whole conversation and this whole training that we're doing, is just to be prepared. And these are some few things that you can do to be prepared. The interview atmosphere should be positive. So one of the things that you can do is prepare for questions. And I've added a list of traditional and behavioral questions that are commonly asked in interviews. And that's probably down in that packet. So the first one I think is examples of traditional questions. And these are just questions that in most interviews you get asked. Tell me about yourself. That's the number one question that you get asked in an interview. Why would you like to work for the company? That's the second question that you get asked a lot. I know one of the things that whenever I was, you're 14, 15, 16 years old, and I was looking for jobs and I was interviewing, one of the things they asked me that was very unique is that, in what university activities have you participated? If you were in college, or if you weren't in college, what universities are you looking at? They want to know. They want to know if you're goal-oriented. They want to know if you have dreams and you have that initiative. You want to pursue things. If somebody asks you, hey, what college are you going to? Because most of the time in that interview process, they've gotten to know who you are. They've gotten to ask you about your current level of school. Some people say, well, I'm a senior. Okay, and then as soon as you say that, the next question they're going to always ask is, what colleges are you guys looking at? Or what universities are you looking at? And what do you think? What do you want to do? What's your major? And they're more or less looking at just your level of just initiative and how big your goals are and how driven you are. And so another thing that they ask is, now even at young ages, is they're asking about leadership roles. Just because you're 14, 15, 16 years old doesn't mean you haven't been in a leadership role. I mean, you could have been captain of your sports team. You could have organized a volunteer thing, and you could have been the person organizing it. So the more you do that, the more you put yourself in positions of leadership, that's the better that for one, your resume looks, and for two, it's just one of those skills that, as an interviewer, if you hear somebody has leadership qualities, you're like, wow, this person is at a whole nother level now. Or, wow, let's dig a little bit further into this whole process. And then it goes to other questions. And then it goes to, they even ask about grades in school. They ask about what your former supervisor would ask. And those are just traditional questions. Another level of questions that they do in interviews is behavioral questions. That's the questions that get to know who you are as a person. It says, tell me about a recent situation in which you function as a leader. That's that leader question again. Give me an example of a recent failure and what you learned from that failure. To us as an interviewer, we're asking that question because we want to know, first of all, if you are okay with failing. And second of all, what did you learn from it? As an interview, it doesn't matter whether you failed or not, it just matters what you learned out of it. And the experience you gain from it. We understand wholeheartedly that the only way to gain experience is to actually try. And if you're gonna try, you're gonna fail. That's just, bottom line, that's just how life is. It says, tell me something about our company that you did not know until you read our webpage. Those are just behavioral questions. So this is just a list of questions. Obviously, you know, it's a generic list, so there's going to be some questions if you're like higher up and getting a bigger job, but there's also some questions in there if you're 16, 14, or 15 and getting a job at Davis Burgers. So they're kind of the same. Some of them don't change the older you get. They just want to know more. My goal in an interview is to get to know the individual's character, get to know who they are as a person, get to know how driven they are, and just in general, if they have a good, solid foundation, and are they going to be a good fit in our system. And that's why, you know, we get this question asked a lot from our guests is, how do you get all these good people that are just smiling and having a good time? And a lot of it isn't through our interview process. You know, I would love to, you know, take credit and say, you know, we cultivated an environment where we just bring in people and then they just magically become the Davis Burgers, you know, excited, smiling, running to the door people. But a lot of it is, at the interview process, a lot of it is, you know, what they learn at home. A lot of it is what that foundation of, you know, morals and standards that you as parents have instilled in them. And so that's why, you know, I really do appreciate the homeschool, just in general, the homeschool education that you guys do, because you guys do a great job of having that solid foundation to work with. And it makes our job a lot easier. You know, to know that whenever we talk to people about accountability, it's not an alien word to them. It's not something they've never heard before. When we talked about them doing the right thing, it's not something they've never heard before. You guys drilled instilling that since they were young. Or we talk about smiling. You know, you'd be surprised how many people I talk about smiling and that they've never heard the importance of smiling. But I tell some homeschool kids, and they already know that it's important because of the parents, because of you guys. And so these traditional questions, these behavioral questions, all they want to know is to get to know you as a person. Another thing that you can do to be prepared is to bring a resume. I know you guys probably in your classes and in your coursework, you guys do resume training, but I added a copy of what a sample resume is in the back. I've also added a copy of a cover letter. I don't know if you guys know what a cover letter is, but that's an old school thing that, you know, when we used to interview, we used to send a cover letter as well. And it's just kind of an introduction to who you are and what are you looking forward to in the job. The resume is very straightforward. It just talks about education. This one says clinical experience, but work experience. It says campus involvement and community service. I really like when resumes have a section on community service, because again, it shows me that level of servant-hearted people that volunteer. If I get an applicant or a candidate that has a bunch of, you know, volunteer hours or community involvement, that tells me that they really care about serving others. That's somebody that I'm going to look extra hard on whenever I am like trying to hire them. But that's just a sample. There's plenty of more samples on the web as far as how to build a resume. But bring a resume if you can. It's not the end of the world if you guys don't have a resume, if you don't do a cover letter. Again, it's just like the whole talk about dressing to impress. It's not the end of the world if you come in with a full-fledged suit or come in with just khakis and a polo. That's still level of preparedness. In the same way with the resume. If you can articulate who you are, if you can articulate what you're looking for in a job and just answer those questions with confidence, then your interview is your resume. Your interview is telling them about you. And a lot of the questions that they're going to ask in your interview is going to just basically lay out what you put in your resume anyways. Another thing to get prepared before you get to an interview is please do not arrive late. I can't stress that enough. Do not arrive late. Give yourself plenty of time. If you have to, give yourself an extra 15, 20 minutes. If you really want the job, I'll be there an hour early. That's just me. But just funny thing aside, be on time. It is not acceptable to be late for an interview. I turn people away even if they're a couple minutes late. again, that's just a whole nother level of how your nonverbal communication is telling me your priorities. And if you're not on time, that means being on time to the interview, you're not taking it seriously. And if you're not taking it seriously, then we're not going to go through the interview process. And so be on time. Give yourself plenty of time. It says arrive early by accounting for traffic, weather conditions, lost in directions. If you don't know the area very well and you're trying to find where you're supposed to go interview, give yourself plenty of time to look for it. If you give yourself, so I've trained my managers, if the applicant is late for interview, they get turned away. And it's up to the manager to whether they can reschedule or not. And that's a manager basis. It's just a case-by-case basis. If they can reschedule or not. I always try to give as much liberty to the managers as possible to decide who they're going to hire. And I just tell them, if the interviewee is late, send them back. And if you think that they're worth a second shot, reschedule it. If you don't think that they're worth a second shot, then there you go. You just saved yourself 30 to 45 minutes of an interview. I mean, that's intense, isn't it? Arrive with a smile on your face, good posture, and a firm handshake. Remember, the whole outlook of an interview should be that of a positive one. You should arrive with a smile on your face, good posture. All of that, and a firm handshake, all of that tells me is that you want the job. It tells me that you really want this opportunity. A smile is an invitation for a relationship. Mr. David Allen's dad always says, a smile turns wrath away. Most people cannot help but smile when you smile at them. That's a big deal, smiling at people. You know, smiling at someone means you're approachable. Means that you're inviting that social interaction. You know, if we're in the restaurant business where we are dealing with guests on a daily basis, and we want our guests to feel welcome and feel invited, and we want our employees, our staff, to smile at them. Otherwise, they won't feel invited, they won't feel welcome. So smiling is very important. And not just in the general sense of Dave's Burgers, but in the sense of, you know, relationships that you carry on outside of Dave's Burgers. One of the things that I tell young people, because I work with a lot of young people day in, day out, is that whenever you graduate high school or wherever you graduate from, there's going to be 20 people with the same exact resume that you have. The same exact classes, the same exact clubs that you went to, the same GPA. On paper, they're going to be the same. But what's going to separate them apart is the non-tangible things, how you make them feel in that moment. Do you make them feel that you care? Do you make them feel like you're approachable? Like, do you make them feel that you want this job? And all of that is smiling, having good posture, having a firm handshake. That'll probably get you the job. What's on paper, half the time, they don't even look at the paper. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, do you look at the paper half the time? It's about what you bring, your nonverbal communication. That's why whenever you do an interview, you gotta smile. You gotta smile. And it's not, and it's smiling, I don't think should be something that you are being forced to. So like, if you're gonna apply to a job and you really want that job, obviously, and then one of their requirements is smile, you're obviously gonna have that already. Because if you did your research, you know you'd be a good fit for that. So you know you put yourself in that position already, you know? But it just does, it helps to be reminded of that. At Davis Burgers, one of the things that we teach our people about smiling is that it signifies hope. It says it is a way we can outwardly express the faith we have in our principles. It also communicates joy, which is a posture that embodies obedience to a purpose. At Davis Burgers, that purpose is to serve. And that's, to me, that matters more than anything. It's the hope. It's how we can outwardly express that faith we have in our principles. When you smile, you're telling somebody there's hope. When people are coming into the building and they're probably having a rough day and they come in and they're greeted by a smiling face, for a second, that's an opportunity for them to feel hope. And that's not something you can do. That's not something that, to me, my faith is big. And, I always believe in that, hope is something that you get from God, right? But we help that by smiling at people. And that's just a simple thing that we can do to help people. It's to smile at them. It gives them hope. Another thing that you can do to stay prepared is turn your phone off or put it away, silent. And on your settings, change the settings from when it is on silent, take off the vibrate setting. Just because your phone's on silent doesn't mean I can't hear a vibrating noise. So if you're gonna put your phone on silent, make sure on your settings you have the vibrate turned off. Another thing is be kind and polite to everyone you come in contact with. Interviewers, employees could ask secretaries or other employees if a certain applicant made a positive or negative impression on them. It's always a good practice to be kind in general, but whenever you go and you're asking somebody, oh, I have an interview with so-and-so today. If you come in already with a bad attitude and then you like turn it on whenever the person is interviewing you, it's not gonna work. Because what's gonna happen is the person interviewing is most likely gonna ask their employee, hey, how did they act whenever they came in? Or, what do you think about them? Just a simple question, what do you think about them? Do you think they'll be a good fit? I think I got a good interview out of them, but what do you think? And they're gonna be like, well, she was very rude with me when she got into the building. And so then that's another thing. It's always good practice just to be nice, to be kind. All right, so guys, anybody got any questions on what to do before an interview? I know there's a lot of information out all at once, but what it boils all down to is just be prepared, practice, don't arrive late, dress nice, and generally just come in with confidence and excitement. And that only comes through by just knowing what you're getting yourself into.
I have a question.
Yes.
If it's their first job, like, other than just babysitting or mowing lawns or whatever, as far as like a cover letter or a resume, do they need to worry about that and try to put stuff on there, like things they've done, like a church serving or things like that, or,
No, like again, a cover letter or a resume, it's not an end-all be-all of an interview. It's just another level of being overly prepared. If you don't have a cover letter, if you haven't had the experience to put in a resume, because obviously it is your first job, then it's just about the conversation you're going to have with the interviewee. It's not a non-starter if you don't have a resume or a cover letter.
That being said, I know my daughter, she interviewed here. It was helpful for her to kind of type out some bullet points. And I don't think she ever gave it to you, but it just got it in her head when she was asked kind of what she would say. Because if she wanted to give you something, she would have something, but then it kind of also helped her prepare, like, what have I done? What are my qualities? All that.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, maybe just in preparation, I know it helped her.
not a full-out resume, just,
No, just like a bullet point.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not like necessarily you're writing out like every single moment that you've had in your school career, but it is an opportunity to showcase things that you're proud of, and you can list them out and say, this is what I'm proud of, this is what I've done.
Like examples.
An example.
Like that you wouldn't think of in the interview, but
Yeah.
maybe she got it before.
Exactly,
Yeah.
because everybody wants to hire somebody that, first of all, is a strong candidate as far as just a genuinely good person, and so if you research the company well enough, if you know which company you're applying to, you're gonna focus and zero in on what some of the things that you've done that can help you get the job. So like if I go in and I'm applying for like a position at a church, I would list some things that I've done to help in the past, because they're going to be looking for stuff like that. They're going to ask me specifically about that stuff. So it doesn't hurt at all. It's not the end all be all, but it just goes back into saying being prepared. The more you do, the more you're going to be actually prepared for the questions. Anybody else have another question? And cover letters are they're a lot more into like professional careers. Like they're a little bit more into jobs that require some kind of level of like a bachelor's degree or things of that nature. Like the job that you really want after you graduate college, those are the jobs that are going to require a cover letter. And they're going to say it in the specifications whenever you do apply. They're going to ask you, I need a cover letter, I need a resume, I need all these things. So But most of the time, anything under that, you don't have to bring a resume or a cover letter. Anybody else? Did you interview yet with us? No? Haven't interviewed yet with us? Okay. Well, I was going to ask you how it went, how the interview process went. Did you interview?
Not here. I've interviewed at Jesse's.
Okay, how did that go?
It was mainly the same questions that like
What
they
they
asked
asked you?
like, about why I wanted to work here, about myself since I didn't have a previous job. It was mainly more personal questions.
Okay. How did you feel through the whole process?
It was nervous, but I didn't show nervous. She was more like she understood where I came from and all that stuff. Like, she wasn't like pressuring me to be like big questions or something. It was mainly more
Yeah.
easy atmosphere.
Exactly. And there's also a certain level of whenever you ask somebody for an interview, you know the type of applicant you're getting based on because of the resume or just in general because of a referral or in general just because of what they put on whenever they apply online. There's certain things like if I see somebody that applied online and they're a high school kid and they're like a junior or like a sophomore in high school, I'm not gonna expect them to come in, you know, giving me like an interview from a Fortune 500 company. You know, I'm not gonna expect them to like give me a dissertation on their PhD, you know, topic that they want the board to approve. Like they don't, so there's also, as an interviewer, there's also a certain level of knowing your audience and knowing who's applying as well. So it's not as nerve-wracking as most people think it is, and it's like you said, it's just a conversation. It's mainly a conversation between one person and another person and talking whether it's a good fit or not for the company. That's kind of what it is.
And Alan and his wife own Jess's Chicken as
Yes.
well as David's Burgers too.
Yes.
I'm gonna make that.
And Ms. Liz was probably one that interviewed you, correct? Yeah, she's a sweetheart. Anybody else have any other questions? All right, let's talk about the interview process itself. It says, during the interview, what makes you stand out? It says, give the interviewer a firm handshake. Make good eye contact with the interviewer. Body language. Try not to fidget or touch your face or hair too often, and keep an upright posture. Those are simple things. Again, simple things communicate big words. A lot of, you know, in communications, anybody whenever you go to college and you take class, Com 1 and Com 2 classes, you know, or you take public speaking, a lot of what you do, your nonverbal, it communicates a lot more than what you actually say. People actually see you first before they hear you, in my opinion. And so, if I see somebody fidgeting, or I already automatically assume that they're nervous or they're touching their face. But body language is big. Do not fidget. Be confident and energetic. It's hard to do that though. You know, be confident and energetic when you haven't had a good breakfast or you haven't gotten some good rest or you don't think you're right for the job. Be confident. Even if, listen, a lot of what an interview is again, it's just deciding whether both parties are gonna have this contract that we call a job and are gonna bind into this contract. Doesn't mean one is more important than the other. It just means that, are you gonna be the right fit or not? So whenever you have an interview, be confident. Be like, you know what, I'm the best candidate you have. You're not gonna find anybody better than me, and this is why. You know? And if they decide to go a different way, that's okay too. You know? The more interviews you do, the better you're going to get at them. After you do that first interview, the rest of them, they're going to be easier and easier and easier. And you're going to realize that it's not so intimidating. And you're going to realize just because you have a no on your interview doesn't mean anything less. It doesn't mean you're not as valuable as somebody else. It just means they weren't the right fit. There's a difference in that. And we have to remind our kids too, because, you know, our young kids, they might go and interview and they're like, you know, I don't think I really did really good in the interview. And then their self-esteem might plummet a little bit, or a big thing about me is that whenever I train people to coach, I want them to know that they're valuable. I want them to know that they matter. And so whenever my interviewers and the people I'm interviewing, they're not going to have that kind of communication with you that communicates differently. So they're going to make you feel welcome. They're going to make you feel like you're valuable. They're going to make you feel like you matter. And because I don't want them to communicate anything other than that. Because everybody here is valuable in my eyes. So doesn't mean you're not valuable. It just means you're not the right fit. Highlight your personality. If you have a sense of humor, talk about that. Be honest and listen carefully. Be attentive to the questions being asked so that you can answer the question to the best of your ability. Stay focused on the issue at hand rather than on issues that may arise later on the interview. Believe it or not, it is all right to admit you are nervous. Some interviewers may find this to be a relatable quality. It's okay to tell them you're nervous. If you feel nervous. Again, it's an interview. It's not the end-all be-all. During an interview, prepare for questions. I see a lot of people, and I like this too as well personally, is that whenever I do an interview, at the end of it, I say, do you have any questions? And it helps me if they do have questions. Because it helps me what they're thinking about. It helps me to see, if they're unsure about something. Because just as well as they're applying for this job, we're also trying to make sure that they're the right fit too, and we're also offering the job as well. So I always like it when they ask questions. I believe I did an example of that too. I might not, then I'll send it to you guys later. Good questions to ask for at the interview. I don't think I included what not to ask. I'll send that to you guys later.
It's in the notes.
It's in the notes. Oh, yes. So, good questions to ask at the interview. What does a typical work day look like? What does a typical week look like? Who am I going to be working with? Who's going to be my supervisor? Why did you choose to work for this company? That's a good question that I like. Whenever people ask me, why did you want to work for this company? How would you describe your company's culture? What is your natural career progression? It says, then ask for the job that iterates your interest in joining the organization. Finally, ask these last few questions. What is the next step in the hiring process? When will you make a decision? May I call you? When it's a good time to call you? Those are really good questions to ask at the end of the interview. But the way an interview goes is that we call somebody for an interview, right? They get prepared, they come in, we have a meeting, we have the interview, then you ask your questions, and then we review that, and then we offer you the job. And then you decide to accept the job. And so, I like the question that says, how would you describe your company's culture? That's when you get that information in as well, and whenever they offer you the job, you can accept it or not, based on that answer too. So, it's kind of back and forth. It's a negotiation, basically. Examples of questions to avoid. Never ask about pay, time off, or benefits. What's going to happen is they're going to offer you the job, and once they offer you the job, they're going to offer you what they're going to pay you. And that's generally in the professional aspect of it. At Davis Burgers, most of the time, you can ask that just because it is Davis Burgers, and it is up in the air because, we do minimum wage or we do based on experience. It's just like it's a variability. For 14, 15, and 16-year-olds, that's a question that, to me, is not a bad question to ask, just because, they're young. But in a professional aspect, when there's like job offer letters included or when there's contracts included, whenever you do sign up for a job, that's something that you kind of do it through the process of accepting or rejecting an offer.
I have a question on that. So
Yes.
if these are, if it's a student that is applying for or interviewing for the job and they have, a sports thing every Tuesday or something that happens during the day on Wednesday that could affect the schedule, is that something that should come up at an interview or after work?
100%. Anything that would deal with scheduling conflicts or something, you That's probably something we need to add. But yes, that's a good question to ask you in an interview. Hey, would you be willing to work around so and so? Because for 14, 15, or 16-year-olds, you guys have a lot of extracurricular activity, which is a great thing. Colleges are looking for that, you know, and we want you guys to have that. So it is a great. Thank you for asking. But yes, that is something you need to ask in the interview process, just because they need to know as well. You know, is this an investment that I'm willing to take on? You know, as you're running a business and you're interviewing someone and they say, well, I can only work one day out of every 2 to 3 weeks, and I'll tell you when that day is. That's not really an investment that you're going to want to do, you know. But knowing beforehand, if they tell you that and you're willing to take that on, then go ahead, you know. But yes, that's a great question to tell them. Hey, you know, I have this, I have that, and will you be able to work around that? Be very proactive in that. Be very proactive in that. Anybody else? That's a good question. Anybody else? And the next ones, I mean, they're all kind of very straightforward. But an interview, again, it's very much a personable, it's very much a conversation. And if there's some things that you're very unclear in the interview, whenever you're speaking to somebody, or if you want them to repeat something back, you can always say that to you. And say, well, tell me a little bit more about the culture, or tell me a little bit more about what a work day looks like. But what kind of training am I going to receive? The more you know, the more y'all talk, the better. To me, an interview that lasts 15 to 20 minutes isn't a good sign. You know, I always tell people, whenever we're asking these questions, if they don't pass a certain point, then if we don't think we're going to hire them, we don't pass them to a specific point. We kind of, you know, find a way to let's end the interview there. And that's okay too as well. Any questions on that? During the interview, what makes you stand out? I already did that one. After the interview, what to do? I think the last speaker last week talked about thank you notes. I love thank you notes. I even love just, you know, coming in and just saying thank you for the opportunity. Mr. Bubvis always tells people, you know, just because you interview somebody doesn't mean you can't gain a customer. You know, you want to treat people with a level of respect, and you want them to come back, and it's okay to come back. And it's okay to, you know, I love a thank you letter. I've received a couple of thank you letters, and those are the ones that stand out the most. And if I'm in the position of deciding between 1 or 2 applicants, and I get a thank you letter from one of them, guess who I'm going to hire? You know, and that's just simple as that. It shows initiative. It shows going above and beyond, and that's what we want out of an employee, as somebody that's going to join our team. We want somebody that's going to go above and beyond than what they're asking. We don't want somebody that's going to say, well, this is all I'm doing because this is my job, and I'm just going to do X, Y, and Z, and that's it. I want somebody that shows leadership skills. I want somebody that, you know, shows initiative. I want somebody that gets prepared. I want somebody that, you know, looks presentable on a daily basis because that's who they want to be. And they want to respect the job enough to come prepared to work. On the follow-ups, allow a few weeks for the hiring process to unfold. And that goes back to that question at the interview when you can say, may I call you, when it's a good time to call you, what the decision looks like, when will you make your decision. Based on those answers, you can figure out when to call them back. If I get at the interview process and someone says, when can I call you? I said, well, just give me 2 to 3 days and I'll give you a decision then. And then if you haven't heard in 2 to 3 days, you can call them. But most of the time, we do the calling. Just because, you know, if you are a standout applicant, we're going to hire you probably right on the spot. I think oftentimes, we hire people right off the spot after an interview process because they did a great interview, they seem like a good fit, and we don't want to wait any longer for them to join the company. And especially now, when we're actively hiring for good people. I think I can't stress this enough that, you know, the current level of workforce that we're having now, it's hard. You know, not a lot of people want to work. Not a lot of people want to, come to work and do the right thing. And not a lot of people want to be coached and be held responsible. So whenever we get those great applicants, we're going to try to keep them. And we're going to try to make sure we take care of them. And so that's kind of another thing that my role is. So I partner a lot with the homeschool people. I do homeschool luncheons for all the homeschool kids that work for us. And just kind of give them a person or like a resource officer that they can talk to if they ever need anything. That's kind of what my unofficial title is as well. So like if a homeschool kid needs something or hey, a question arises or the parents needs to mediate between the manager and work, I can do that for them. I'm here for homeschool kids. I'm here to be a representative for them and make sure that they're okay. Because I care about our people. And the next few things, it talks about video interviews. That happens during COVID when we're doing video interviews now, just because of COVID, and phone interviews. But those are kind of rare. And if you do get some of those, those are some tips that you can do. But I don't want to overcomplicate interview process because it's a very straightforward process. But I want to reiterate just the fact that the more you prepare, the better you're going to be at. And it's not this big crazy ordeal that you're going to get yourself into. It's a very good conversation to have. Yes.
I have a question about qualities that you look for. Do you have a couple of top qualities that you look for when you enter that, especially for first jobs or high school?
Yeah. So, one of the biggest things, especially for first job people, when I look for it, is can they hold a good conversation? That's for me, that's just a simple thing. Most of the people that it is their first job, they don't have a lot of skills. They don't know that they gotta walk fast. They don't know that they gotta smile big and, because they haven't gone through interview training with Jose Romero. But they don't know all these things. But whenever I am interviewing them, if they can just seem like a really good person and carry on a good conversation and just genuinely, seems like they're not scared to talk to you, for me that's a big plus. And then once that happens, then you can open up the door to, asking questions about, what it is to do the right thing and what are their pet peeves or what do they think, a good employee needs to have and stuff like that. But each interview looks different in that aspect. But the core of the whole interview is just getting to know that person, getting to know who they are, getting to know what they can bring to the table.
Do you do a vocal? Do they have to sing at the interview too?
Yes. So at the interview, if you can hold a G flat, you can get hired. I don't know what G flat sounds like. But no, they can have if they look presentable and they have a good, we can have a good conversation. That's all that that's the biggest thing for me. That's all for me that I'm looking for, because if it's their first job, they're gonna learn a lot of stuff along the way. And through the interview process, they're gonna learn. After my first interview that I ever did, I learned a lot. Especially just because I didn't get the job doesn't mean I didn't learn. I learned what they're looking for. I learned how to be prepared the next time I have an interview. So for me, it's not. For me, it's just that. Anybody else? That being said, we are actively hiring at Davis Burgers and at Just Chicken. If you guys do want an opportunity to work for a company that cares about you and really wants to instill some good habits in you and just you in general, talk to me afterwards. We do have opportunities for employment of 14, 15, and 16-year-olds. We do hire 14, 15, and 16-year-olds because we believe that if we could start them earlier, we have a better chance of preparing them for later on in life. Because we understand that most people are not going to be with Davis forever. But while they're here, I want them to learn something. we are in the people business, and that's why a lot of what we do isn't necessarily about burgers. You know, we have a great product and we want to keep it simple, but a lot of what we do is about leadership development, it's about people development, it's about having just fellowship. I mean, we do homeschool luncheons for that very instant moment, just to have fellowship between each other, to instill good things. We do basketball a lot every Thursdays with our young people, and we do devotionals after basketball because we believe in helping them, ground them in some kind of truth that helps them make good decisions in life. Because we believe that every person matters, and we are very adamant about helping people. The owner and Miss Jessica Allen, they love helping people. They believe that what they're doing here at David's Burgers is a mission. They want to be able to help and serve. And it's in our mission statement to serve, encourage, and the community. Anybody else? Any other questions? No?
Thank you.
I didn't plan on having like a long 2-hour talk. But I do want to, make sure that you guys got as much information as possible. And that's why I did give you guys a handout, because a lot of what I say, it's great, but it's a lot of information, so the handout helps. That way you guys can review it later on. If you have any questions, Miss Sarah has my email address. I think I have some cards or anything. Feel free to contact me. My email address is Jose, Jose, @davidsburgers.com. And we also do volunteer opportunities as well for our homeschool kids.
I do have a question. How do they apply?
Well, it's unique because we do have a partnership with you guys. So we don't necessarily, we want you guys to apply online like everybody else, but that's not necessarily the route that I would like for you guys to take. Since we are partners with the homeschool kids, you can just email me directly or send me a text message and we can set up an interview right then and there. I think that, again, having a relationship with the homeschool has to be able to help with this whole process of applying online, waiting a couple of weeks to hear back. I think that's, for me, I think that's not required.
And is there paperwork that needs to be done before 14-year-olds? I just remember this from
Yes.
Taylor.
Yes.
So give some time.
Yeah, if you are 14 years old, then you need a work permit. 14 and 15, you need a work permit. And so what that is that you can download it from the Arkansas Human Services and you can download it says just Arkansas Minor Permit. You can Google it, Arkansas Minor Permit, and download it, print it off, sign the top portion of it. On the top portion, there's the first few lines, there's like 1 or 2 things that you need to do. The first one says fill out the form. The second one says submit a birth certificate or an ID with the permit. And then so whenever you go to the interview, have that filled out, have a copy of that already stapled together with the paper, give it to the person interviewing you if they offer you the job, and then we send it in. And we mail it in, and when it comes back to our office, we'll give you a call to start. The process can take 7 days, it can take 14 to 20 days. It's just very unpredictable just because it's like Arkansas Human Services, so it's just it's very unpredictable. But yeah, 14 and 15-year-olds print out the. Do you have a link in your website that can give them?
Yeah, we can have them. I can have Tammy put that on.
Okay.
The Facebook Live.
Yes. Have a link and just download it, print it out, fill out the top portion, a copy of what they asked you to do as far as submit documentation, and then we'll give it to us. We'll mail it in. The permit comes back, and we give you a start date.
And you don't need that if you're 16. Though.
If you're 16, you don't need that. If you're 16, all we need you to do is come for an interview and then start in 2 days. I'm serious. But I want to give just a couple minutes, Mr. Amir. Can you talk about David's Burgers and just the opportunities that we have?
That's a bit on spot.
I'm not good talking on people at all. Thanks, Jose. Well, I started David's when I was 21, and I started dishes. I started making dish. I was working on grill a little bit, and I was not even good on the grill. Instead of making burgers, I was making tacos. Because all the beef was falling apart. So, anyway, they were patients with me for a long time. I've been working for almost 7 years now. And I'll work my way up. Like, you know, I have no education, high school graduated, just want to work hard. And so anyway, from the grill, I went to law. Started serving a little bit, start serving people, making people day better, making them smile. I love to make people smile. That is fun. And sometimes they get upset because I smile too much. So anyway, I'll start. I got a great opportunity. I think our night manager had to leave for somehow. Something happened. Night manager had to leave for a little while, and they offered me like, "Hey, we're gonna train you." I was like, "Woo, let's get it!" I'm excited. So I worked my way up from assistant manager to the manager. Management went to I skipped the general manager position, so I work for corporate team. Now I train people to how to do the Davies way, right way. It's a great opportunity for all the young people to work. Like I work at Melville location, the new one over at Fast Priority. I'm not sure if that's the new building. We get about, I think, 8 homeschool kids work for us. We work on their hours, schedule. They got a bunch of games, lots of basketball. I know that for sure, lots of basketball. And just as chicken, it's fun. I'm telling you, Davisburg is so much fun to work with. Like I get excited every day I want to go work. I wake up like, oh, how can I make someone happy today? Because you know this whole world going crazy, right? Like you know people upset with their pickles. You put the pickles on the side and eat that burger. So you know we are, you know, we're not just here to sell burgers and fries and chicken sandwiches. We here, we on people business, and Mr. Allen and Jose do an amazing job in hiring all this, recruiting all these people we need. But Mr. Allen taught us for years and years and years, they're not focusing on money. Money is not an issue at all. I mean, if they need to pay someone $80 an hour, it's not money. But if they want to pay someone money, they will do it. But the whole focus is people. People are very important. And you know, most restaurants you go, you hardly can get the refill because they're too busy with other stuff. So you know, what we do at Davies is just like people, and I mean, you know, Bible said love on your neighbor. That's a great practice to love on your people, but that's all I get.
Yeah. But yeah, so we do very flexible on the schedules. I mean, we work around everything. I think the main thing is just to involve them in a culture where they're going to be excited, they're going to be challenged, and they're generally going to be around other people that are learning the same thing as they're learning. I know that for Taylor's awesome.
She loves it.
Cheyenne is awesome. And then we have great homeschool people, and my goal is to just create a partnership with homeschool and us, and just give them an opportunity to just work and gain some kind of experience and just make some money. And work in an environment where they're going to be protected, work in an environment where they're going to be taken care of, because I know that's a big deal for parents to have young kids, 14 and 15-year-olds. You don't want them just to put them in a job where they're going to be, you know, talked to a certain way. For me, you know, I'm telling you, I am very protective of my people just because every person matters. Every person matters, and every person is valuable. And one of the things that I train my managers to say is that you never hurt people's self-esteem because that's somebody's child. You never make them feel any less. That's somebody's child. And you want to make them feel encouraged. You want to make them feel 10 feet tall and have the confidence to tackle the world so that they can choose to do it however they want to do it. So this is my card. So if you guys want to grab my card on the way out, y'all can. But that's all I have for you guys today.
Okay. Let's see.